I think they would.
No, she said
Because
they'll come back after election. They'll come back
before
election.
election.
just before.
Just
Which
that they
really
won't be
means after
serious.
election.
Yes.
Yeah. No, but I'm just looking. It's just because
Yeah, they're on break now. I think they come and then they all sent to their constituencies. They all get sent back to their constituencies and then they come back after the election. What did you do?
Let's see what we're recording.
If you've gone and captured something that I've said that's a secret between me and my people,
That's why I just said.
Lakumi.
You're talking about
Lakumi.
elections. Which
I'm
ones?
if you've gone and said something that is between me and my, I did not say it.
The Smooth Breakfast
Oh my good God,
presents
it's loud.
the headlines, the stories, in-depth analysis of national events.
You know, like I know what I've been doing.
Studio is live.
98.1.
Mike's
Don't mind Tunde Okufi.
Max are up. Studio silence, please.
Good morning, Lagos. You're tuned in and listening to Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. It is officially time for our detailed newspaper analysis segment called Freshly Pressed. Joining Valentine and myself
Folu.
in the studio this morning, we have Devo Okorie, which is strange for a Friday, but he is here nonetheless. Good morning, Devo.
Cool. I'm sorry.
Eku, I'm sorry. Eku, well, now that's in you.
Hello, Lagos.
Yeah.
Cool December.
Alright. And we got Miss
Eku
Iriti.
alaja odun.
Miss Iriti
That's what
Bakari
they say.
Yusuf. Good
Allow me
morning.
to correct it. You will Eku alaja odun.
Mumbai.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, that's
I'm
it.
with you.
You can find her up on Twitter. She's at Sisioge Lagos. And we have also got Tunde Okufi in the studio, aka Big Coves.
Hi, Folu.
Good morning. No echo anything.
Yeah, different versions. Mine is English.
Excellent. Okay.
While everybody's busy doing their parapol, ladies, please send us messages through WhatsApp. WhatsApp number is 0809 444 0981, 0809 444 On Twitter, we're at Smooth91FM. Use the hashtag FreshlyPressed981. We can jump to our first story very quickly from Premium Times, and it is an exclusive, very interesting 3 days we've experienced here on Freshly Pressed. The exclusive reads, police dismiss 121 officers for absconding from deployment against Boko Haram, and they released the full list as part of that report. Remember 2 days ago where we got the report that about 167 police officers out of the 2,000 police officers that were deployed for training as a part of the military training to beef up security in those parts that are challenged with the terrorist action really in the northeast part of the country. And we got that report that 167 absconded. Yesterday we saw another report, actually it came 2 nights ago, where the police public relations officer Jima Moshood came and said no, that report was false, that it was fake news from Premium Times, and then which prompted Premium Times to release more details citing the different locations that where they were deployed from. And then today we're seeing now that the police, Inspector General of Police, actually dismissed the police officers that they said did not abscond.
Okay. Yeah, let's even start with that bit first. As in, can we ever trust the government or government officials to, give us the truth? And it's only when they're confronted with irrefutable facts that are out there that they can, amend and adjust their story. It's just poor, right? And we've gotten a little too used to it. Okay, so now back to these guys. So they were all recruited to join a counterterrorism, training course, and there's a specific facility for this. So they were well aware that they were being trained for counterterrorism. Now, these guys, 167 of 2,000 absconded, represent 8.4%, and I know it's a serious issue, but if you have 8.4%, absconding or disappearing, then it's probably not a bad return. So anyway, these guys, knowing what you're going to face with everything that we say about equipment and resources available to the people who have to face Boko Haram. Now, these guys abscond from what I can gather when they realize where they will be deployed to, right? They absconded when they learned that they will be deployed in active combat situations, and not to more peaceful metropolitan areas like Maiduguri metro area, right? So that's when they absconded, and I find it very odd. Why would policemen be deployed to active combat situations, deployed in active combat?
probably to give added support or continued support
The policemen.
to support, not necessarily support in fighting in active battle, but maybe to provide civil security in areas that have been
I absolutely agree. I suppose that's what it
reclaimed
is.
in some
I
sense.
suppose that's what it is, but that's what, according to the story, that's what it says that they were informed of. And perhaps it just wasn't clear enough, and these are the ones who lost their marbles and said, look, it's better to be alive and on the run than...
especially at Christmas.
Especially that's supposed to be facing Boko Haram, and they take off. It's shameful, but it's also a reflection on our state of preparedness or approach. So training camps are good, but what equipment are these guys? Everyone hears the stories, or even military, falling short in terms of resourcing and equipment to face Boko Haram. So obviously, a policeman that doesn't have that training will be a lot more worried. The final bit that I go to, what worries me is that these guys disappeared with their police equipment, which is including uniforms and guns, right? And we all know that this is what these guys are trained for. So then, you don't want them then, falling onto the other side and using the, police equipment, their uniforms and their guns to wreak havoc on the community, robberies and the like.
Thank you so very much, today. And we'll go to this next story from Vanguard newspaper. I'll come to you, Devo, for your analysis on this story. Oil price drops to $48 and that's $12 below the 2019 budget benchmark that was put at an estimated $60 per barrel. To affect the 2019 budget, that was a projection that the federal government was hoping for. And in the light of this, there are indications that Nigeria's Guinea oil will hit the global market in February 2019. It seems from the story that there are a lot of optimistic approach or outlook to things, but do these match up? I mean, if global oil price falls, it definitely will affect the budget's estimates, seeing that Nigeria has borrowed a lot of money. I mean, what are your thoughts surrounding the story, the details especially?
Well, this has always been the bane of the budget conversation. While we belabor what the budget is about, how allocations are meant to be given, we forget that the real job is how we're going to fund it. Because at the end of the day, if you cannot fund, you cannot deliver on the promises or the mandates. And in this case, I would call like what happened 2 years ago, where there was an unfortunate blessing. Unfortunate in the sense that oil price dropped all the way down to about, I think, $10. It was hovering between 10, 15, and 20. And many people were alarmed and said, oh, how would we cope? How would we live? But the unfortunate blessing there was that even though revenues were reduced in terms of oil, it forced Nigerians to actually begin to think about how to plan our country, our spending, without oil revenues. Because there's been this babysitting or this constipation on oil revenue simply because we think as long as the prices are going up high,
it will benefit us.
Yes, and if you remember the good old Jonathan years of was it Father Christmas all over? Yes.
So what have we learned?
That's the point. That's the unfortunate part of it. We didn't learn anything, and we haven't done much. So now we're not only threatened by a price drop, we're also threatened by volume because OPEC intends to reduce output in many of the countries to stem some of the activities that were causing the price hike. Now, when it comes to the revenue-based allocation, I'm not really hearing anything from the finance minister. I've always said it, this administration has had challenges.
Do we still have a finance?
No, we still
Yes,
have.
we
Her
do.
name,
Yes, her name
is Zainab.
And what has she done
Yes,
since she's been
and
there?
we normally call on her all the time to speak up because
We call on her. Has she answered? No.
revenue diversification is meant to come from the fiscal plan of government. When they discuss this, it's not about how you're going to spend. It's about the character and the nature of what you want to achieve. Remember we used to discuss Vision 2020?
Yes.
Right now, I'm not sure there's a Vision 2030 on ground. Now, what's the plan to be able to actually get Nigeria off its drunkenness on oil revenue, which has been our major source of revenue for some time now, our major source of income? Two, in discussing this, how are we going to implement it? Because there are many other sources where Nigeria, if they say the oil price drops all the way down to maybe let's say $5, how would we cope? What are the measures that we have put in place to ensure that we can actually grow these other avenues to be able to get Nigeria on a platform whereby oil just becomes a top-up instead of of the mainstay.
All right. Tunde, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I was going to, this is 2019 budget, but we're not going to achieve this huge diversification in government earning that you discussed in time for this budget, right? So then the huge question is how exactly they intend to fund it. Having such a huge, pegging crude at $60 per barrel in the budget is, many would look as just, I don't want to say irresponsible, but not very clever in a sense. Because for a bunch of factors, for reasons, no one else is projecting it to be that high. Shale already puts an artificial cap on crude at about $50 anyway. Now, okay. So how do they intend to fund this? They can say crude is on. They can plan. The budget is a plan, so they can plan that's going to be 100. As ridiculous as that sounds, the question is how are they going to fund? How are they going to fund the shortfall? They intend to fund the shortfall by borrowing, one, and then I also expect by also squeezing a lot more on tax, income tax, tax generated, our tax contribution to GDP is one of the lowest, amongst the countries that you would compare us to, the mid nations. I think we're at about.
Yeah, but because of the elections, they don't intend to raise taxes.
Well, that will be after. Do you understand? My point being is that the budget is the plan. How they intend to shore the shortfall is an entirely different thing. So they can still, let's see what it is that they intend to do.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. Let's move on very quickly to the next story from Punch newspaper. INEC introduces app to check votes buying as an, I'd say, offshoot or reaction from the Ekiti. Is it proactive reaction maybe from the Ekiti State saga with votes buying incident? The INEC National Commissioner and Chairman, Board of Electoral Institute, Mustafa Liki, made this announcement at Pali. He said that the app is available on the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. They named the app the INEC iReporter. As a part of the functions of the app is to give voters the ability to report, certain incidences happening at various polling stations to effectively provide for a hitch-free elections. What are your thoughts today?
Okay, well, it's good, right? It's so we've joined the many independent or iReport type, platforms for many different things, and now we've brought it to bear in the elections. I'm just a little skeptical about the very high expectations they have of it, because for instance he says that this will address, so he says new challenge of vote ban. I'm like, new, excuse me. But that they expect it to checkmate or fix vote buying is more than a bit presumptuous. It will help in reporting, iReporter, eyewitness accounts of what happened, what is going on ground can be put up. What I would like to know, because it's not clear, is that will the posts and updates be visible to all who download the
That's
app? That's
the real question.
So I can see what's happening.
If it's connected with social media in some sense.
Exactly. Even if it's not connected with social media, within the app, if I have the app downloaded, will I be able to see what's happening in a polling booth in Borno, for instance, or where they report an incident has happened? Am I going to be able to see that, or is it only going to be INEC? Is it just going to be posted to some PB that only INEC and its officials have access to? It becomes a lot more powerful when it's that community. It's communal. Everyone can see what's going on, and everyone can take information from it. But it's good. It's always good to add something to efforts to improve our election experience. It becomes harder for people to just dismiss things as rumors and as not being true, right? So it's a good idea, and the only worry is that they said they did it for a lot of money. I want to say that
no figure was put on that.
We voted the budget for INEC already.
He also mentioned very interesting and important for us to note this. He also mentioned that they reconfigured the way police stations or polling units and ballot boxes are going to be placed so that people cannot expose their votes, so they cannot go and collect money afterwards, in his words. Moving on to this next story from Daily Times. EFCC records improvement, secures 312 convictions in 2018. They said the record was between January and December 24th, 2018. That's higher than the recorded tally for 2017. They said the record was for states like Lagos, Abuja, Kano, Port Harcourt, Gombe, and Benin, Maiduguri, Ibadan, Kaduna, and Uyo. What are your thoughts on this, Debo?
Well, this is EFCC's report card that they're giving. The up number from 2017, which was about 189, to I think they went up like 50% to about 312, with headlining two politically exposed persons. That was Joseph Darrier and Jolly Yamin, that were convicted and are cooling off in jail. However, the real questions are how many cases are pending. Let's really know how far we've come, because you know that our judicial system is challenged with this processing of legislative judicial matters, their capacity, their competence to be able to reel them out in time. And the administration's capital mandate was based on the fight against anti-corruption. So it's not enough to just say that, oh, we've improved and that we've done about 312. How many are actually at stake? How many cases are actually pending? Who are these cases? If you remember during the time of Nuhu Ribadi, they used to publish all the convictions, all the papers. Many people thought it was all about trial by media, but the idea was to give you a scope and understanding of how much they're actually being tasked with, those who they're looking at, and how far they have gone. It's been very challenging for this government to actually get to this state, because you do know most of the people that they're coming up against even have a larger war chest and even have a better, what I say, they have better teams working for them to be able to elude many of the lacunas and the loopholes within our judicial system. But we're hoping that come 2019, that this would be greatly accelerated to ensure that, because if you don't address corruption, you do know it is the root of all corruption. Nigeria hasn't moved forward for all our challenges. You can trace it back to where someone has disenfranchised the nation due to various economic and financial crimes.
Thank you so much, Devon.
Hey, thank you. I'll go over to a few messages before we move on to a story where UNICEF is talking about children suffering extreme violence. But first, the message is coming in on WhatsApp. Amaka Chimaubi from Oludia Papa says, on the police disappearing, I haven't heard where they might be going to. It's the highest point of lack of patriotism. And what matters, again, is what will happen to them if they're no more on the battlefield. A system that pays less attention to welfare but cares about the leaders at various levels. Well, I'm really disappointed, especially when you consider how these policemen were recruited. You'll be shocked that those who are qualified were denied this, and the ones who got it were played in, or something to that extent. Thank you very much for that. Tony, meanwhile, says, this one is in from Tyre from Satellite Town, who says, INEC is not a serious agency. You said phones are not allowed at polling stations, and also launched a mobile app to do iReport. INEC should get serious, please. And yes, you're not allowed to take it into the booth with you. You can report before you step into the booth. That's actually what you're meant to report, not report what you are voting. Our Papi K says, Minister of Finance and Minister of Budget and Planning, it's either these two are looters or they're saboteurs. Wow. The reason I say so is, why do they always put the nation's budget and destiny on hold, and we're always tied to the whims and caprices of OPEC and Brent price? We're never conservative, but instead annoyingly optimistic. Come on. Actually, that's not true. Last year the last budget was actually quite conservative with what we pegged the oil benchmark price at, to be honest. All right, and we're always going to be beholden to OPEC because, well, oil does
because
we're small.
It does indeed. It does. Yeah, sorry. Up next, we're seriously, let's talk about this UNICEF story, shall we? It's from the New Telegraph. Children suffered extreme violence in 2018. Now it's a few days left, and the United Nations Children Fund, yesterday we're talking in Abuja, and spoke about how Nigeria, as well as a few other countries, there's 17 in total, have suffered that children in these countries have suffered one form of direct violation or the other, without their governments holding the perpetrators accountable for these heinous crimes. He says whether it's been used as human shields, killed, maimed, rape, forced marriage, abduction, they seem to have become standard tactics in conflicts ranging from Syria to Yemen and from Congo to Nigeria. Considering that this is the 30th anniversary of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, Mr. Riti, what are your thoughts on this and where we are as a nation and how we protect our children?
Well, we clearly don't. I mean, that's if there's one thing we can agree on, whatever party you're at with in Nigeria, is that we clearly don't protect our children enough. I don't think the government certainly only protect their own birth children. Yes. They don't protect the children of the country. They don't of the nation. They don't see the children of the nation as their responsibility. I think all you've got to do is look at any traffic light, any junction, and they're there, and the police are right next to them, and all sorts of abuses going on, and you wonder why. Who is stopping this? Having said that, we do know that there are certain states who are making certain efforts. Some of them do take these children off the streets and they put them in children's homes, in care homes, etc., and they educate them there. And you do have some success stories. I believe there's somebody in the acting world who used to be one of those feral children who's actually worked his way up and is doing very, very well. Having said that, though, one of the depressing things about war, and I think, there's everything depressing about war, but one of the critically upsetting things about war is when children do get used, they get weaponized, they get used as weapons, and they're the ones that get raped, they're the ones that get, turned into all sorts of hideous, if you like, tools for the sake of the warlords. What's happening in the northeast of Nigeria, I do believe can be stopped. It can be stopped. A lot of effort is going into stopping it, and we know it's about education, education, education. Education is empowerment, equals the future, whichever way you want your future to be. And I think there's a lot of work that's going on in there, and it needs to be, if you like, they need to up the ante. I actually like what, there's a quote here that I'd like to read out. For too long, parties to conflict have been committing atrocities with near total impunity. And that is the problem. That is the problem. And that's actually a culture in this country. There's an impunity to practically everything. Yes, we hear one person that was sent to jail for one thing, but there is an impunity culture in this country, and that's what we've got to put a stop to.
Thank you very much for that, Ms. Iriti. Let's move on now and talk about the minimum wage from the Vanguard newspaper. The economy is too fragile to withstand a labour strike in January. The Nigeria Employers Consultative Association are pleading with the federal government, therefore, to send a draft bill of the 30,000 naira new minimum wage to the National Assembly for passage to save the nation from the consequences of the strike being planned by organised labour in January of 2019. What is the likelihood that this will happen anytime soon, looking at the timeline, considering that a number of our lawmakers are on holiday at the moment, and the impending elections late February?
Well, it doesn't even affect the lawmakers now until it comes to them. What the NECA DG is asking for, the presidential assent so that it can come to the lawmakers.
Yes, I'm just asking, can it be sent to lawmakers who are not on seat, as we say, or who are not working?
Yes. Now, the thing is, the problem here is that the president has created another technical committee to look into it again, which he's saying that, look, this delay is causing havoc for the nation because already, because of this delay, the Labour has said that come January, they will be going on that mother of all strikes that they have touted about. Now, he's saying the economy is just reeling on the comeback of a recession. Unemployment is still high, and the country cannot afford a breakdown or a shutdown to any extent. Now, you see, the thing about this minimum wage is the fact about truth-telling and fact-facing. At what point are we going to actually stare ourselves in the faces and bite the bullet regarding our conditions? Many have said that there is no reason why minimum wage cannot be approved, given the fact that they've seen expenditure both in their eyes on the scene, that there are other allocations that are given that conform to the fact that 30,000 can be paid without stress. But we've just discussed the budget earlier and how we couldn't fund it. So I know the government's fear in terms of how we're going to carry on this new budget. Remember, that's at the federal government stage. The states who are chronically in debt, where are they going to come from?
Well, the thing about this minimum wage thing is, states that haven't even managed to pay the current minimum wage, you are owing salaries, and we're discussing going on. That's our problem in this country.
So
can we resolve the salaries that are owed for now?
Before you even resolve it, it's an ostrich nation. Who is going to face these facts? Who is going to tell the truth?
That's what Labour needs to focus on instead of this really nonsense they're doing.
And unfortunately, Labour is just one angle. Remember, every other sector is actually reeling its own teeth out for, I have been disenfranchised, I've been marginalized, I have outstandings. You're speaking of the medical, you're speaking of the education.
Yeah, but that's the point, that when you have a Labour Council, we're not saying, the Radio Workers Labour Council, we're saying the Labour Council. They are supposed to represent the rights of the workers in this country, the labour laws, and ensure it's implemented and is properly adhered to. My annoyance with the labour force that we have, or the, whatever you call them, that bloke Labour, Ayuba Yaba, what's his name, whatever.
Yes.
Anyway, that's the one. My problem with his group is that first of all, they seem to just want to, they're like narratives to the press. They're always grand gesturing. You know, and they don't seem,
Maybe
it's not
they might
maybe
just take
though.
a cue from
No,
the yellow
stop.
jacket
I've
movement
been
in
here
France.
in
In
10
France.
years,
Yes,
and
because
these people have, they hijacked Occupy Nigeria from us, and they messed it up for us. And I'm sorry, they've been doing it before I came here, and they'll continue to do that because they're not thinking about the people. If they were
Well,
thinking about the people, half of these problems would be
they're,
resolved.
they're just a necessary evil because unfortunately many of us have relations, brothers, sisters, and uncles who are part of the civil service of the governments in our country.
Mm.
So this is a matter that's going nowhere. It must be addressed.
Thank you very much for that, Devo. Mr. Ritty, let's talk about education now. So we have the National Association of Proprietors of Private Schools that are asking for the adoption of a new reading model. Now, the Guardian newspaper carries the story where the president of NAPS, Dr. Sali Bolujoko, says that there's a new reading model that's been developed by an author, Taiwo Adekoye, and saying that we need to evolve the way that we teach our children to read, or the way we teach people to read, because the way that we're still learning is based on education methods from 70, 80 years ago, and saying that a part of the problem why we are where we are as a nation when it comes to education is because public sector class are only focused on sending their own wards to be educated overseas for foreign education, and again calling on politicians and civil servants to send their wards to government schools so that they actually have a stake in the education system.
And clearly they're never going to do that. So I don't know why we keep, we just keep repeating the same thing, They're never going to do that because at the same, as we said, when we're talking about the Child Act just now, they don't care about the children of the nation. They only care about their own children.
Correct.
As people constantly repeat, look, the children of the people that rule this country do not school in this country. And yes, it would be nice if they did. Perhaps then they would know how it feels. However, they do have relatives though. So having said that, you cannot, there is no family in Nigeria that doesn't have second or third generation poverty. No family.
Indeed.
It is a fact.
So what about this adoption of a new reading model and
So
seeing what we can do with our curriculum?
that's what I'm going to. So if we don't focus on educating our nation, we're basically failing ourselves. Now, phonics, oh my word. Let's talk phonics. Oh my God. That's what I learned. That's probably what you learned. Phonics sounds like, and you find that you have conversations with adults in Nigeria and they don't know phonics sounds. And you're like, oh, sorry, I what to do? And that's because they don't use it. And phonics is one of the most simplest, powerful, memorable ways to teach children
And it affects
reading.
communication.
Yes,
directly.
reading, writing,
And Mrs. Adekoya says this is a product of 8 years of research for
Yes.
this book that she's got.
Forget it.
phonics,
Forget research. What's she talking about? They've been using phonics forever
Yes,
and a
no, but
day.
she's saying that she's tested it against Nigerian languages and teaching students here how to work. So relating to this climate, which is important.
Sorry, this is one of the things we like to do in this country. We like to regurgitate work that has been done and done and done and try to mask it and say, sorry. No, allow me to say something. You have researched it against Nigeria.
Yes.
Do you know what Fafunwa was doing? Yes, our former Minister of Education. Come on.
So
we
to
know
find
that
out what
phonic
Fafunwa
sounds.
did,
Phonic
takes
sounds.
research to bring back that knowledge to the fore, for people now to know and remember.
I beg to differ. I don't have to agree. So I beg to differ.
Okay.
I beg to differ. My point is, in any language, phonics is the basis of any
I'm not
language.
disputing that.
Right. So if you're saying that you've researched the HS power of phonics with Nigerian language is not different to anything language. There are sounds like, there are nuances. Half of the problem in this country is because people don't understand the nuance of our foreign language, of our local language, and they mistranslate it.
Thank you very much. Let's move on. Tunde, coming to you for this next one. In River State, there are 3 commissioners that are being grilled by a judicial panel over the collapse of the building that claimed 17 lives. This day newspaper is reporting it, and it is good to know that at least the commissioners being questioned are Urban Development and Planning and Fiscal Planning Commissioner Dr. Reason Onya, as well as a health professor and a special duties commissioner as well. But what are your thoughts on this in terms of holding government officials accountable for these situations that occur way too often?
It's the right thing. I mean, hold the parties responsible accountable. Let's hope that it goes beyond just if they're found to have been negligent in their duties, then follow-on action should be taken, and it should be seen to them because 17 people have lost their lives. That's 17 families. Lost people, grieving families. This building was under construction, so I believe these were individuals who were working on the construction site. So 17 breadwinners have been lost, and that has a ripple effect, right? The kids and the other dependents that will now suffer as a result of this. Would there be any compensation? Like you said, this happens all too often. We need to fix it. I mean, there was this spate. There seems to be an epidemic in Lagos, and it's spreading across.
Yes.
We need to deal with it.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much. We've come to the end of the show, actually, unfortunately, so I'll just read out a couple of messages and then we're done. Yinka says, I beg to disagree. Buhari's children's school or schooled or are schooling in Nigeria. Gigi, I know
True.
for sure, has his own children schooling
How
outside
many kids
Nigeria.
does he have?
He says
True.
exactly.
You know all of them?
That's
Useful
not the
to
point
know.
though, but she's right.
Topper Show Me, aka Toppy Man, says it's appalling that we are often misinformed by the police. Now the IG has validated the news about the absconded policemen by dismissing them. So I think the policemen fled for the fear of not being killed, largely due to deficiency in counter-terrorism training, welfare support, and equipment. The government needs to place a premium on the lives of our security forces by sincerely and judiciously providing them with the needed support in terms of equipment and manpower. While Fadawansi says Nigeria's minimum wage program can only succeed when we diversify industry and resource generation while applying the principle of division of labor. The giant-sized monthly take-home of government elected officials and ministers has to be dissected.
Yes. Lagos, thank you so very much. Special thanks to our analyst who came in again this morning. A special thanks to Tunde Okufi at Big Cooks, Ms. Rita Abakari Yusuf at CCOG Lagos, of course, Divo Okere by the same name on social media. Stick around at 8:15. We talk sports inside of the locker room. Good morning.